The snow fell thick and silent over the northern forests of Montana, smothering the world in white and soundless dread. Pines bent beneath the weight of the storm, their black silhouettes breaking the pale curtain of flurries. The wind moved through them like a whisper, not a gentle one, but something alive, watching, hungry. Clara Hayes ran. Her breath came in ragged bursts, clouds of vapor bursting from her lips and fading into the dark. The forest floor crunched beneath her boots, the snow halfway up her knees. The world smelled of pine sap and fear. Behind her the hunters shouted, men's voices hard and furious, cutting through the storm. Spread out. Don't let her reach the ridge. The lights from their flashlights sliced through the trees like white knives. She could hear the metallic click of their rifles, the curse of one man tripping on a root, the barking of a dog somewhere behind. She didn't know why they were after her anymore. Not exactly. That part had blurred hours ago. But she knew they wanted her blood, or her silence, or both. The snow stung her cheeks. Her fingers burned with cold. She clutched her side where the torn fabric of her coat had stiffened with blood. A shallow graze maybe, but enough to weaken her. She reached a clearing where the moon, faint and hidden behind clouds, flickered through gaps like a dying light. A frozen stream cut through the clearing, its surface fractured in places by the storm's weight. She stepped onto it without thinking, boots slipping, catching herself with trembling hands. Behind her, a gunshot cracked. The sound echoed through the forest. Gidak. The bullet hit a tree trunk a few feet away, splintering bark that sprayed into her hair. "Don't run, girl," a voice shouted through the storm. "It'll be worse for you if you do." She didn't stop. Every breath tore at her lungs, but the need to move, to live, overpowered everything else. She didn't know that something else was watching her. Something older. Far above the treeline, from a ridge shrouded in shadow, golden eyes followed the chase. They gleamed against the snow like embers caught in ice. He had felt her long before he saw her. The scent had drifted through the storm, human, yes, but threaded with something different, something ancient, something not meant for these woods. The Lycan king had lived a long time in solitude, hidden from the world that had long since forgotten monsters. His name was whispered in old tales, muttered by those who claimed to hear howls under full moons in the Bitterroot Mountains. But he was no mere story. He was real. And tonight, something had stirred him from the stillness of decades. He stepped from the ridge, tall and broad-shouldered, his coat dark as midnight, his breath fogging in the cold. His human form moved silently, each step deliberate. Snow did not crunch beneath his boots. It yielded as if afraid. Below, the hunters closed in. Clara stumbled against a fallen log, her body trembling. The world swam in white and gray. Her heart beat so hard she thought it might burst. The forest around her seemed alive with eyes. She pressed a hand to her wound and crouched, trying to quiet her breathing. The cold had begun to seep into her bones, that dangerous kind of cold that doesn't sting anymore, the kind that numbs. A shape passed between the trees, tall, broad, wrapped in heavy furs. She froze. It wasn't one of the hunters. The light from their flashlights hadn't reached this far yet. The shape stopped just beyond the trees, watching her. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice raw. The figure didn't answer. She took a step back. The snow gave way beneath her boot, a soft crack of ice. The figure moved closer, the faint crunch of snow revealing footsteps slow and steady. Then silence again. The storm eased for a moment, and through the shifting clouds, the moon broke free, pale and cold. Its light caught his face. He was human, or nearly so. His eyes glowed faintly, golden and inhuman against the black night. His hair was dark, wet with melting snow. He looked like something carved from the wilderness itself. "Please," Clara breathed, her voice cracking. "They're after me." He tilted his head, those golden eyes studying her face with unsettling calm. "I know," he said. His voice was deep, quiet, threaded with something ancient. "How?" "You shouldn't have come this way," he interrupted. Another gunshot broke the air. Clara flinched. The man moved faster than her eyes could track, a blur that became a shadow. When the bullet whined past, he was already standing in front of her, hand raised. The slug dropped into the snow at his feet, flattened. She stared, unable to breathe. "What are you?" she whispered. His gaze lingered on her face, as if deciding something. "Something that doesn't let them take what's mine." "I'm not," she started, but he was already moving again. The forest erupted with shouting. Flashlights flickered between trees, the beams cutting closer. "Over here. I saw her." The Lycan's eyes flashed gold again, brighter this time, almost burning. "Stay down." The next few seconds blurred into chaos. The air trembled with a sound Clara had never heard. Half growl, half thunder. Snow burst from the ground as something huge moved through it, fast and deadly. The hunter's shouts turned to screams. She covered her ears, her body shaking as the sound of breaking bones and tearing fabric filled the clearing. The smell of gunpowder mixed with iron and frost. Then silence. Only the storm remained. When she dared to lift her head, he stood again, taller now, his breath steaming in the cold air. Blood darkened the snow at his feet, though none of it seemed to be his. Clara stared at him, trembling. "You killed them," she said. "They would have killed you," he replied. Her pulse raced. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. "What do you want from me?" He stepped closer, his eyes still glowing faintly. "To know why your scent carries the mark of my kind." "I'm not." "You are something," he said, cutting her off again. "Something that shouldn't exist." Snow fell between them, silent and relentless. She swallowed hard. "Who are you?" He hesitated for a moment before answering. "They used to call me Rowan. King of what's left of the old blood." "King," she repeated faintly. "Of what?" His gaze softened, almost human for a moment. "Of what the world forgot." Lightning flickered distantly beyond the mountains, the storm deepening. He turned his head, listening to something she couldn't hear. Something in the wind, maybe, or in the far-off echo of other footsteps. "They'll send more," he murmured. "They always do." "Who?" "The ones who hunt the old blood, and anyone who carries it." She felt her stomach drop. "You think I'm—" "I don't think," he said quietly. "I know." He stepped closer until she could feel the heat from his body against the cold. "You don't remember it yet, do you? What happened the night of the full moon?" Clara's breath caught. "What are you talking about?" He looked down at her, not with anger but with something like sorrow. "You'll remember soon, when the moon rises again." And then he was gone, vanished into the storm as if the forest itself had swallowed him. The clearing fell silent once more. Clara stood there, snow clinging to her lashes, heart pounding so loud she could hear it. Somewhere behind her, the hunters lay still in the snow, their rifles broken, their tracks already vanishing beneath the falling white. She was alone. And yet, the woods no longer felt empty. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a low, distant howl rose through the storm, deep, ancient, and calling her name. Morning came pale and thin over the mountains, the light struggling through the heavy clouds that still hung over northern Montana. The snow had stopped some time before dawn, leaving the forest blanketed in stillness, a fragile kind of silence, the kind that holds its breath. Clara woke to the cold. Her body ached, her fingers stiff, her lips cracked from the wind. She'd fallen asleep inside a half-collapsed ranger cabin, one she'd found by following a forgotten trail. The roof leaked snowmelt onto the wooden floor. An old iron stove sat rusted in the corner, long dead. For a few moments she didn't know where she was. Then the night came rushing back, the chase, the gunfire, the golden eyes. "Rowan." She pushed herself upright, wincing. Her coat was stiff with dried blood, but the wound had already stopped bleeding. When she peeled back the fabric to check, the skin beneath had knitted together more than it should have overnight, faintly pink, almost healed. Her stomach turned. That wasn't possible. She stared at her hand, flexing her fingers. They trembled slightly, but strength returned faster than exhaustion should have allowed. Every sound, the drip of melting snow, the whisper of wind outside, even the faint scurry of something small in the rafters, seemed sharper. The world felt too close. She tried to shake it off. She told herself it was adrenaline, shock, survival instinct, anything human. But when she stepped outside into the gray-blue light of dawn, she could still smell them. The faint metallic tang of blood in the snow, the burnt oil of gunmetal, the smoke of fire someone had lit miles away. Scents that shouldn't have lingered. And beneath all of it, she could still feel something else. The echo of his presence. Like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. The nearest town lay 12 miles south, a small community called Westbridge, tucked in the shadow of the Bitterroot Range. A single road wound down from the forest, lined with frozen pines and sagging power lines. Clara followed it slowly, boots crunching in the snow, her body half numb and half alive with something new she couldn't name. By the time she reached the outskirts, a gas station, a few shuttered motels, a diner with flickering neon, the sun had climbed just high enough to turn the snow from gray to blinding white. The diner door chimed as she stepped inside. Warmth hit her like a wave. The smell of coffee, bacon, the low murmur of country music playing from an old jukebox in the corner. A few locals turned their heads, curious. A woman in her 30s with wild brown hair and a blood-stained coat tends to draw eyes in a place like this. She took a seat at the counter. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and silver rings on every finger, raised an eyebrow. "Rough night, honey." "You could say that," Clara said, forcing a small smile. "What'll it be?" "Coffee. Black. And whatever's hot." The woman nodded and poured her a cup. Steam curled up from the mug. Clara wrapped her hands around it, letting the heat seep into her palms. When the waitress set down a plate of eggs and toast, Clara realized she hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. The first bite burned her tongue, but she didn't care. She was halfway through when a voice came from behind her. "You're far from the road, aren't you?" Clara turned. A man in a sheriff's jacket stood by the door, brushing snow from his hat. His name tag read Sheriff Keller. He looked mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with a quiet kind of suspicion in his eyes, the sort that comes from knowing every face in town, and knowing immediately when one doesn't belong. "Car trouble," Clara said. He nodded slowly. "Storm hit hard last night. You're lucky to be alive out there." "Yeah." "You staying in town?" "Just passing through." He studied her coat, the dried blood near the sleeve. "That looks like more than a scratch." She forced a laugh. "Fell on some barbed wire." He didn't smile. "Be careful out there," he said after a long pause. "Wolves been acting strange lately. Folks up north are saying they're seeing things in the woods." "What kind of things?" "Tracks too big to be a wolf. And some of the hunters from up near High Ridge haven't come back." Her stomach clenched. He nodded to her coffee. "Stay warm." Then he tipped his hat and left. She watched him go through the diner window. His patrol truck crunching down the snow-covered street until it vanished behind the pine trees. Something in her chest tightened, the uneasy sense that the world she'd known before that night no longer existed. That evening, the motel clerk gave her a room at the end of the hall, a dim space with a single window overlooking the frozen lot. She locked the door, drew the curtains, and sat on the edge of the bed, the silence pressing in. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from cold. From the feeling she couldn't escape, that she wasn't alone, even now. She stood and looked at herself in the cracked mirror. The woman staring back looked foreign. Pale skin, eyes darker than usual, a faint shimmer to the irises that caught the light. Her breath fogged the glass. For a moment, her reflection seemed to move slightly out of sync. She stepped back, heart pounding. A knock echoed from the door. "Clara," a voice said. "Whoa." Familiar. She froze. She hadn't told anyone her name. "Open the door." She hesitated, every instinct screaming no. But something else, deeper, older, pulled her forward. She opened it. Rowan stood there. Snow clung to his dark coat. His hair damp from the storm. His eyes weren't glowing this time, but they didn't need to be. There was something about his presence that filled the air, that changed the temperature of the room. He looked at her, really looked at her, with the same mix of curiosity and restraint she remembered from the forest. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "Neither should you." She frowned. "You followed me." He didn't deny it. "I had to make sure they didn't send more after you." "Why?" "Because you're not ready for what you are." Her pulse quickened. "Stop saying that. I'm not. Whatever you think I am, I'm not." He took a step inside, the floorboards creaking softly beneath his boots. "Do you remember the night 3 weeks ago? When you woke up outside your cabin with blood on your hands?" Her throat went dry. "How do you know about that?" "Because I felt it. Change. The moment the old blood woke in you." She shook her head, backing away. "You're insane." He didn't move closer, but his voice softened. "Clara, when the moon rose full that night, something broke through. You survived it, but it left its mark." "I don't remember anything." "You will." She turned toward the window, needing air, but when she looked outside she froze. 2 black SUVs were parked near the gas station across the street, men in dark coats stepping out, rifles slung low. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Them." Rowan's eyes darkened. "They found you." "Who are they?" "The ones who hunt my kind, and now yours." "Then we should run," she said, already grabbing her bag. He shook his head slowly. "You don't run from a storm. You become part of it." "What does that mean?" His gaze met hers, steady, fierce. "It means you're done pretending to be human." Before she could answer, the sound of boots echoed in the hallway. The motel lights flickered. Rowan moved to the window, his silhouette framed by the pale light of falling snow. "When they come through that door," he said quietly, "don't fight what's inside you. Let it out." Clara stared at him, terror and disbelief warring inside her. "Let what out?" He turned his head, and for the first time, she saw his eyes blaze gold again. "The thing that howls for you when the moon is near." The door handle began to turn. And somewhere deep in Clara's chest, something ancient stirred, something that felt like memory and hunger and home. The door burst open in a hail of splinters and shouted orders. The motel room exploded with chaos. Boots pounding, flashlights cutting through the dark, the sound of safety snapping off. "Get on the ground," a voice roared. "Hands where I can see them." Clara froze. The air felt thicker, charged. Every sound sharpened, her heartbeat, the click of a trigger, the whisper of snow outside. Rowan stood between her and the intruders, unmoving, calm in a way that was terrifying. There were 4 of them. Black coats, tactical gear, no insignia. Their rifles gleamed under the weak yellow light of the ceiling lamp. Rowan's voice was low, steady. "You don't want to do this." One man stepped forward, his weapon trained squarely on Rowan's chest. "We've been tracking her since Helena." "Step aside." Rowan tilted his head slightly. "You tracked her," he repeated, almost as if testing the sound of the words. "But you never asked why she's still breathing." "Last warning." He moved. It wasn't human. The flashlights went wild, beams jerking as the air split with a deep, guttural growl. Clara flinched back against the wall as the room seemed to implode, a blur of motion, of sound, of violence too fast to follow. One man screamed. Another's weapon clattered to the floor. And then silence. When the noise faded, only Rowan stood. His chest rose and fell steadily. His hands streaked with blood that wasn't his. Clara pressed a trembling hand against the wall to steady herself. "What did you?" He turned toward her. His eyes were still human now, but the gold shimmered faintly beneath. "You wanted to know what they are," he said quietly. "They call themselves hunters. But they're not hunting for sport." Her voice came out small. "Then what?" "For control. For fear. For bloodlines they can't understand." He stepped closer. "For you." Clara shook her head. "Why me? I'm nobody. I live in a cabin. I don't even." You do. She looked up at him. His expression was unreadable, carved from something ancient and wounded. He knelt slightly, eyes locked with hers. You said you didn't remember that night, he murmured. Maybe it's time you do. And before she could speak, his hand brushed her forehead, gentle but searing. The world went white. She was standing in the forest again, but not as she'd seen it before. The moon hung enormous and silver above the trees, bathing everything in its light. Her breath came fast, her body trembling, but not from cold. She felt alive, terribly, beautifully alive. And across from her, a shape moved through the mist. Rowan. But younger somehow, his features unlined, his eyes brighter. He was watching her, not with curiosity this time but recognition. She tried to speak, but her voice was gone. He reached for her hand. Their fingers met, and the world shattered. Scream. The smell of smoke. Men shouting. Gunfire. She saw a cabin, hers or what had been hers, burning against the night. A figure dragged her outside, blood covering her arms. She remembered fighting, biting, her vision red and wild. Then a flash of moonlight. Pain unlike anything human. The world breaking apart. And a voice, deep and ancient, whispering her name. Clara. She gasped and fell to her knees. The vision snapped away. The motel returned. Dim light, the smell of blood, Rowan's shadow before her. Her chest heaved. What did you do to me? I showed you what you forgot. I didn't forget, she said, trembling. You made me forget. He looked down, silent. The guilt in his eyes was answer enough. She backed away, fury and grief clashing inside her. Why? Because you weren't supposed to survive, he said quietly. Her breath caught. When the bloodline calls, most don't make it. The first change breaks them. You didn't die that night, but something inside you did. I hid you from them, from what you were. It was the only way to keep you alive. Clara's voice cracked. You erased my life. I gave you one. She laughed bitterly, tears blurring her vision. Then why did they find me? Why now? Because the hunters can smell the blood when it wakes. They've been searching for generations, for one who carries both sides. Both sides. He hesitated. You're not just wolf, Clara. The words fell heavy between them. What do you mean? You're something rarer. Half-blood. Born of a human mother and a king of the old kind. Her stomach dropped. You're lying. He met her gaze. You know I'm not. She shook her head violently. No. My mother, she was normal. She raised me. She loved you enough to hide you, he said. She was one of the few who ever walked away from my world. I let her go when she begged me to. But when she realized you carried my mark. Clara stared at him, breathless. Your mark. He nodded once, slow and solemn. I told her what would happen on your 25th winter. When the moon turned full in the snow. She thought she could stop it. She couldn't. Her knees gave out. She sat hard on the floor, the world spinning. You're saying, her voice trembled. You're saying you're my father. Rowan didn't look away. The silence was unbearable. The truth hung there, heavy as the cold air outside. I should hate you, she whispered. You can. She looked up at him. His face sharp and beautiful and haunted. Why save me now? Because you're the only one left. What? The hunters wiped out the others. Every descendant of the old blood gone. You're the last heir. She stood shakily, anger and fear twisting through her veins. Then you brought this on me. You made me what I am, and now they'll never stop. He nodded once. That's why you have to learn what you are, before they come again. I'm not a monster. He stepped closer, his voice low. Neither am I. Not entirely. His hand hovered near her cheek, but he didn't touch her. It's not the teeth or the claws that make us monsters, Clara. It's what we do with the hunger. Something in his tone softened her. A memory of something lost before she was born. She wanted to hate him, but her heart ached with something more complicated. Outside, the snow began to fall again, slow and heavy, covering the tracks of the men who had come to kill her. Rowan turned toward the window. They'll regroup. When they do, they won't send men. They'll send what they made to fight us. What do you mean? He looked back at her, eyes dark. They call them silvers, creatures built in our image but hollow, made from what they stole of our kind. And they're coming here. He nodded. She felt the weight of it settle into her bones. Then teach me, she said quietly. Teach me to fight them. He studied her for a long moment. Then the faintest shadow of a smile crossed his lips. I was hoping you'd say that. The snow outside thickened, hiding the mountains and the road and everything human beyond. Inside that small, blood-stained motel room, father and daughter stood facing each other for the first time as what they truly were, the last of a dying bloodline. But what neither of them knew was that the hunters were already watching from the ridge. And one of them, the one who had once known Clara's mother, whispered into his radio. The girl's awakened. Just like he said. The reply came through static, cold and final. Then bring her home. The storm returned with a vengeance that night. Snow slammed against the motel windows, wind howling like something alive. The power flickered and died just before midnight, plunging the world into silence and darkness broken only by the glow of the moon, full and brutal above the mountains. Rowan stood by the window, motionless, watching the storm. His reflection in the glass flickered between man and something else, like the moonlight itself couldn't decide what he was. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, a thick blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Her pulse was steady now, not from calm but from resignation. She had stopped fighting the truth. He was her father. She was the last of their kind. And the hunters, the silvers, were coming. You can feel it, can't you? Rowan said without turning. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. She hesitated. The pull. He nodded. The blood calling the moon. It's not rage. It's memory. Our kind remembers every winter we've ever survived. It feels like drowning, she whispered. It feels like living, he said softly. She didn't answer. Her hands trembled, not from cold but from something deeper, a restless, burning energy beneath her skin, pacing like a caged animal. She could hear things again. Heartbeats beyond the walls, the snow cracking under invisible footsteps, the far-off hum of an engine. They're close, she murmured. Rowan's gaze sharpened. How close? Less than a mile. 2 trucks. 5 heartbeats. No 6. He turned from the window at last. Then we move now. Clara stood, her knees weak. Where? Into the woods. Toward the ridge. They won't risk the tree line in this storm. Not unless they have to. He opened the door, and the night hit them like an icy slap. The wind tore at their coats, and the snow came sideways, thick as fog. They ran. The forest was alive with sound. Branches cracked under snow. The air alive with the hum of distant engines. Clara's boots sank deep into the drifts as she followed Rowan through the trees, her breath coming in sharp bursts of white. How do we stop them? She shouted over the wind. We don't, Rowan said. Not tonight. We survive. The word survive carried something heavy in it. A memory, a promise, a loss. She didn't ask. They climbed higher, toward a ridge where the pines thinned and the wind howled between the rocks. From there she looked back, the faint glow of headlights moving through the storm below. They're spreading out, she said. They're tracking us by scent. Rowan stopped, turning toward her. Then it's time you learned what that scent means. She frowned. What are you talking about? He stepped closer, his eyes faintly gold. You've felt it since the night it started. The way the air bends around you, the way the animals listen when you breathe. It's the blood. You can hide your scent if you focus. How? He raised a hand to her chest, his palm warm even in the freezing air. You feel the pulse beneath the fear. You don't run from it, you guide it. She tried. She closed her eyes, drew a breath, and felt the rhythm beneath her skin slow, steady. Her heartbeat merged with something larger, The sound of wind through the trees, the snow hitting the earth, the crack of ice on the stream below. And then silence. She opened her eyes. The forest felt different. Butching. Rowan's breath came slow. Good, he said softly. You just vanished from them. Her lips parted. I did it. For now. A sound shattered the stillness, the sharp whine of something mechanical. Then a scream cut short. Rowan's expression darkened. They've brought the silvers. From below, shapes emerged through the white. Not human, not wolf. Their bodies gleamed like metal, but their movements were too fluid, too organic. Their eyes burned pale, reflecting the moonlight like mirrors. Clara's stomach dropped. What are they? Failed versions of us, Rowan said grimly. Built from our blood, stripped of our souls. The first one moved fast, impossibly fast, leaping onto a tree trunk and hurling itself toward them. Rowan shoved Clara behind him and met the creature midair. The sound that followed wasn't natural. Bone and steel colliding. Clara stumbled back, her boots sliding on ice. Another silver lunged from the side, jaws open. She raised her hands instinctively and the air shifted. A blast of force erupted from her palms, sending the creature flying backward into a tree. She froze, staring at her hands. What did I? Rowan, still locked in combat, shouted. Instinct. Don't think, feel. Another came. Clara ducked, rolled, grabbed a broken branch, and drove it upward into the creature's throat. It shrieked, not like an animal, but like metal grinding against stone, and collapsed into the snow. Her pulse thundered. She could feel something moving inside her, growing stronger with every heartbeat. Her vision sharpened, her muscles coiled. The storm around her wasn't an obstacle anymore. It was part of her. She caught Rowan's eyes for a brief second, and he smiled, proud, fierce, alive. Then she saw the silver behind him. Rowan, she screamed. He turned too late. The creature drove its claws into his side, dragging him down the slope. He roared, not in pain but in fury, as he tore into it with his bare hands. Clara ran after him, the snow blinding her, her lungs burning. She reached the bottom of the ridge and found him kneeling, one hand pressed to the wound, blood staining the snow black. No, she whispered, dropping beside him. No, no, no. He caught her wrist, his grip firm. Listen to me. You're bleeding. Listen, he hissed. They'll follow my scent. You have to go north to the old sanctuary, the caves beneath the glacier pass. There's a mark on the stone. You'll know it when you see it. I'm not leaving you. You have no choice. She shook her head, tears freezing on her cheeks. You said we'd survive. He smiled faintly. We will. Just not together. The wind howled through the trees, carrying the sound of engines and metallic growls. The silvers were regrouping. Go, Rowan said, his voice breaking into a growl that wasn't human. His eyes flared gold again, brighter this time. Before they see what you are. Clara hesitated, then turned and ran. She ran until her lungs ached, until her body felt like it might split in two. The forest blurred into streaks of white and gray. She didn't look back. When the howls rose behind her, deep, echoing, mournful, she didn't know if they belonged to Rowan or the silvers. By dawn the storm had passed. Clara reached the ridge Rowan had spoken of. The world below lay buried under snow, untouched and blinding. She found the cave easily, a dark mouth in the side of the mountain, half hidden by fallen branches. Inside the air was warm, ancient. Symbols carved into the stone walls glowed faintly blue, pulsing like veins. She followed them deeper until she reached a chamber where moonlight poured through a hole in the ceiling, reflecting off a pool of still water. In its surface, she saw her reflection, pale, trembling, but with eyes that now glowed faintly gold. She knelt beside the water, touching it lightly. The ripples shimmered, and a voice, low, familiar, echoed through the chamber. Clara! She looked up. Rowan stood at the edge of the pool, or something that looked like him. A vision, a shadow made of moonlight and memory. Her throat tightened. You're not gone, he said gently. Not yet. The bond between us runs deep. You'll feel me when the moon rises again. Tears blurred her vision. Why did you save me if you knew it would end like this? He smiled faintly. Because even kings hope their children will build something better from their ruin. Then tell me what to do. He shook his head. You already know. You can feel it. The light began to fade. His image flickered. Rowan, wait. Remember who you are, Clara. And remember. His voice softened, almost a whisper. The hunters serve someone older than they know. The real enemy isn't human. Then he was gone. Only her reflection remained. And in it, something new. Behind her, deep in the darkness of the cave, a low growl echoed. Not a silver. Something else. Something waiting. Clara stood slowly, her eyes gleaming in the half-light. Whatever hunted her, whoever commanded them, would learn soon enough what it meant to chase the daughter of the Lycan king. The snow had turned to glass. Morning light struck the Bitterroot Mountains and shattered into 1,000 fragments across the frozen ridges. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was heavier than the wind had ever been. Clara emerged from the cave with frost in her hair and new blood in her veins. The world smelled different, sharper, fuller. She could taste the air, hear the slow movement of water under the ice, sense the pulse of life beneath the crust of winter. The bloodline had finished what it began. She was no longer half of anything. The moon's last light still lingered in her eyes when she looked down at the valley below. The hunters' trucks lay abandoned, half buried in snow. Smoke curled from what remained of the motel. A handful of black shapes moved through the clearing, dragging bodies, repairing equipment. They were preparing to return. But they weren't what she feared anymore. What haunted her was the echo of Rowan's last words. The real enemy isn't human. She followed the trail of the silvers for most of the day, moving like a shadow between trees. Her body no longer tired the way it used to. The hunger beneath her skin fed her strength, her senses, her will. At dusk, the trail led her to an old hydroelectric dam, long abandoned and frozen solid. The hunters had turned it into a base. Floodlights on generators, vehicles hidden beneath camouflage nets. And in the center of it, surrounded by cages and wires, stood something vast and pulsing with silver light. It wasn't a machine. It was alive. She crept closer, heart hammering, until she could see the truth. Bodies, dozens of them, suspended in glass tanks filled with luminous fluid. Men, women, and wolves. Their faces pale, eyes open but unseeing. Tubes ran from their veins into a central core that glowed faintly blue. She heard footsteps approaching and ducked behind a column. 2 hunters walked past, their voices low. Control said the source was stable now, one muttered. The serum's working, but they said she's awake. Her. The girl. The half-blood. The one who killed the team at the motel. They want her alive. Why? Because she's the key. The original king's blood and the human's heart. That's the balance they've been trying to recreate. The director says once they bind her to the source, the silvers will obey forever. Bind her. How? The man shrugged. Ask the director. She built this place. Their footsteps faded. Clara's stomach turned. A director. Whoever she wasn't just hunting monsters, she was making them. And if Rowan's warning was right, she wasn't entirely human either. Night fell like a knife. The dam glowed faintly under the moon, its walls slick with ice. Clara waited until the guard's patrol looped away, then slipped through a broken maintenance door into the heart of the facility. Every surface hummed faintly with power. The air smelled of ozone and blood. She passed rooms filled with cages, medical equipment, and walls lined with photographs. Wolves dissected, runes etched into bones, diagrams of lunar cycles. And then she saw it. A photograph of her mother, pinned to the wall beside lab notes. Her handwriting shaky, desperate. Rowan is right. She's changing sooner than we thought. Can't stop it. Forgive me. Clara touched the page, her throat tightening. Beneath it was another note, written in a colder hand. Specimen H9 confirmed. Bloodline intact. Retrieval ordered. Her heart sank. They hadn't stumbled upon her. They had found her. Every move she'd made since that first change had been watched. Guided. "Hello, Clara." The voice came from behind her. Soft, familiar. He turned. A woman stood in the doorway. Tall, graceful, her white coat dusted with frost. Her eyes were gray, sharp as broken glass. "Who are you?" Clara demanded. The woman smiled faintly. "You can call me Evelyn. But once, long ago, I was called by another name. The same one your mother used to whisper before she died." Clara froze. "You knew her." "I made her what she was." Evelyn stepped closer, her voice low and smooth. "You carry her courage. And his power. The first and last of both worlds. What is this place?" Evelyn glanced around the glowing chamber. "A solution. The world fears what it doesn't control, Clara. Humans can't destroy the bloodline, so they've chosen to own it. To evolve it. I've spent decades perfecting what your father began. My father tried to protect us." Evelyn's smile turned sad. "He protected himself. He created an empire of beasts, believing he could keep humanity out. But he forgot he was human once." "I haven't." "You're lying." "Am I?" Evelyn reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a pendant. Silver, shaped like a crescent moon. "Your mother gave this to me the night she ran. She said, if she lives, find her. Teach her to choose." "Choose what?" Clara whispered. "Which side of her nature wins?" Evelyn's eyes gleamed. "Join me, Clara. Help me finish what they couldn't. Together we can end the war between their kind and ours. No more hunters. No more kings. Just one world, under your blood." Clara's breath came hard and uneven. For a moment the room tilted. Her father's face, her mother's memory, the bodies in the tanks. Everything twisted together in unbearable clarity. "You're asking me to be your weapon." "I'm asking you to be free," Evelyn said. "You think you can run from what you are. You think you can save anyone hiding in a cave. You'll spend eternity fighting shadows unless you accept the truth. You were never meant to be prey." Clara's voice trembled. "You killed him." Evelyn's eyes softened. "No, child. He killed himself trying to fight what he'd become." Something inside Clara snapped. Not rage but revelation. She stepped closer until the distance between them was breath. "You don't understand," she said softly. "You can't control what was born wild." Evelyn's smile faltered. And then the air cracked. A low, deep growl rippled through the chamber, shaking the glass tanks. Lights flickered. The water in the pool began to churn. Evelyn's face went pale. "What have you done?" "I didn't call him," Clara whispered. "He called me." From the darkness above, something moved. The air bent, the shadows folded, and Rowan stepped through. Not flesh this time, but light and smoke and fury. The echo of the Lycan king. His eyes burned gold. His voice a growl made of thunder and grief. "Get away from her." Evelyn stumbled back, raising a hand as the room erupted with wind and sound. The silvers outside howled in response, not with obedience but fear. Rowan's gaze locked on Clara. "You have my strength now. My curse. My choice. What you do next defines our blood forever." Clara turned toward Evelyn, her hair whipping in the storm that had erupted from nothing. "You said I had to choose," she said. "Then I choose us." The world broke open. Glass shattered. Light exploded. The silvers screamed as their power turned inward, consuming the machines that made them. The dam cracked from its base, water roaring beneath the ice. Evelyn reached for Clara, shouting over the chaos. "You don't understand. If you kill me, you kill yourself. The blood is linked." Clara's eyes glowed bright as the moon. "Then we'll both finally be free." She reached forward and touched Evelyn's chest, and the light swallowed them both. When the explosion finally faded, The mountains were silent again. The dam was gone. Only a crater remained, filled with dark water reflecting the stars. In the middle of it stood Clara, alone, alive, her breath curling in the cold. The gold had faded from her eyes, leaving only human brown, but when she looked at her reflection, a faint shimmer of silver ran through her veins. A whisper carried through the wind, familiar and tender. "The blood remembers." She smiled faintly. "So do I." And then she turned toward the horizon, where dawn broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks. Below the ridge, a single wolf moved through the snow, gray fur dusted with frost, eyes the same color as hers. It stopped, lifted its head, and howled once before vanishing into the trees. Clara watched until it disappeared, her hand resting over her heart. The world was quiet again. Not safe, not simple, but alive. And somewhere beyond the mountains, the last echo of her father's voice whispered through the wind. "You were never the hunted, Clara. You were the storm."